welcome back. Yeah, it disconnected, so I apologize for that. I don't know why it disconnected, and it's annoying. Dude, stay. Okay. Again, I need to get a stand for you guys. But welcome back. I'm glad I stopped reading when it disconnected. I don't remember where we were, so I'm just gonna restart the entire page. But we are almost done with it. We barely have any left, so there's that. He heaved a long sigh. I think it amuses her to make people look stupid. He gripped Tiki's shoulders and held her away from him so he could look into her face. Clara's somewhere obvious, I'm sure of it. We just have to think like Lara can. But Clara must be alone now. She's so little. What if she's scared? Tiki's voice started to rise hysterically. What if she wanders away and we never find her? Calm down, Tiki. It's the middle of the night. I would bet that Clara's asleep somewhere Larkin intended to trade Clara for the ring. She wouldn't have left her someplace where she would get lost. It just doesn't make any sense. Riker put his lips close to her ear. Don't worry, I'll find Clara if it's the last thing I do. He's actually redeeming himself for the fight that they had. Yeah, I'm doing a story time tonight as well. I just wanted to finish the chapter from last night and do another chapter in it as well. Anywho, for a second, Tiki leaned against him. How she wanted to believe him, to believe in him. With a sob, she let her head rest on his warm chest, the steady beat of his heart echoing in her ear. But what about you and Larkin? She asked in a whisper. Tiki, there is no me and Larkin. She wanted you to believe that, to use us against each other to get the ring. Riker shifted his position so he could look into Tiki's face. I've talked to her several times, put up with her advances to try and learn where she was hiding Clara. He wiped a tear from her cheek with his thumb. But it was for one purpose, and only one, to help you. Tears flooded from Tiki's eyes again. Was it possible? Riker smiled at her, a gentle, warm smile, his eyes clear of the shadows that normally lurked there. Don't cry, Tiki. Do you remember our walk in the park when I told you what had happened to my family? Tiki nodded. And you remember the reason I kept returning to Charing Cross? Why I was following you? Tiki gave another nod, smaller this time. A small bubble of hope arose in her chest. Everything I told you was true. You don't love Larkin? No. Riker shook his head. There's only one person I love, Tiki. Oh? He made a noise that sounded like something between a laugh and a sob. And I denied it as long as I could. But I don't want to live without you. His thumb caressed her cheek. It's you I love, no one else. This makes me wonder what the rest of the books of the series is like. If this is the ending of this book. Or how it's going leading up to the ending of this book. It's you I love, no one else. Hang on. I have to see if I have to skip some of this because it's escalating fast. Okay, I don't have to skip any of it. How was my Christmas? It was good. Hi, welcome in. Okay. His lips found hers, then with a warmth and passion that confirmed his words, Tiki's arms slipped around his neck and pulled him close, her emotions burning through her. She'd been afraid to admit it to herself, but she had wanted him to love her so much. He crushed her tight to his chest, his lips against her hair. I love you, Tiki, he whispered. Again, they remind me of horror interests. They really do. Hi, welcome in. Not Larkin, never Larkin, only you. Tiki slid her arms around his waist and pressed her face against his bloodied white shirt. Breathing in his scent, Riker was here with her, and they loved each other. Someone cleared his throat. I hate to break up this charming moment, but I need some questions answered. They forgot Leo was in the room. Tiki and Riker turned to find Leo standing in the entrance of the hallway looking thoroughly shell-shocked. Leo, yes, of course. Riker strode over to him. He slid an arm over the prince's shoulders, motioning for Tiki with his head. Let's go back to my sitting room and talk. He led Leo down the hallway, and Tiki followed behind. Sorry. Half an hour later, Tiki took a sip of her hot tea and wished again that Leo would stop staring at her. So old Mammy was right, Leo repeated, setting his teacup down. With a reveling clatter. Fairies. Riker nodded his head in acknowledgement, looking over at Tiki with a gentle smile. He reached out and wrapped his warm fingers around hers. Momo's being dramatic again, sorry. If you can hear that in the background. We've been caught in the middle of a battle as old as time. Fairies, Leo repeated, but he didn't sound as though he disbelieved Riker's answer. Around us all the time, you think? Riker nodded. Go on then. Why don't we see them? Part of the truce that's held within the ring, Leo. They choose when we see them. And when we don't. And sometimes we do and don't realize who we're looking at. Riker leaned forward and rested his elbows on his knees. Tonight was a bit of an exception. Just as we battle other countries for power, so do the Fae. Their world is more ancient and complex than ours, as they straddle both worlds. But tonight the battle spilled over into London. And what was that battle for? Leo asked. Riker looked over at Tiki. She reached into her pocket and pulled out her fist, like a flower unfolding under the warmth of the sun. She slowly unfurled her fingers to reveal the Queen's ring. Mother's ring, Leo gasped. With shaking fingers, he reached out to pluck the band from her palm. He stared into the flames embedded in the heart of the stone, still burning brightly. His brow drew down in a frown as 1,000 different possibilities rushing across his face. Finally, he lifted his eyes to Tiki's with an accusing stare. You did steal this, didn't you? Riker interrupted before Tiki could answer. Now, Leo, don't jump to conclusions. We've risked our lives to keep the ring safe from the likes of Larkin and Marcus and others. He nodded at Tiki. You should be thanking her for returning the ring safely to you. But if you didn't steal it, then how did you end up with it? Riker smiled at Tiki. Probably best not to question everything, Leo. Just be glad it's safe again. Leo looked from Riker to Tiki, as if debating whether to push for more information or not. His gaze dropped to Tiki's clothes. And those clothes? Before either of them could answer, Leo shook his head and raised his hand to stop their answers. No, on second thought, don't tell me. It's probably better if I don't know part of that part either. What's important is that we have the ring back. That's all that matters, really. He turned to look at Tiki. You were the boy I met in the park that day. I can see that now. His eyes dropped to her wrist. I knew you and Elizabeth were the same person. You had to be with that mark. He hesitated a moment before shaking his head. But what's your real name? Tiki flushed and smiled at Leo. My name is Tara Kathleen. She leaned forward and whispered loud enough for Riker to hear. Just call me Tiki. I don't need any fancy titles among friends. The corner of Leo's mouth turned up as she echoed the very words he had spoken to Elizabeth at the mask ball. Tiki, he repeated. Tiki of the fairy ring. He said the words softly in an almost bemused voice. He reached forward and took her hand, looking deep into her eyes. I suspect there is much more to your story that I have yet to hear. He raised her hand to his lips, his eyes holding hers. I look forward to learning all about you. Hi, welcome in. Tiki twisted the edge of her coat in her hands as she waited for Riker to return from escorting Leo out. Larkin was gone. The ring had been returned to Leo. Where was Clara? Her eyes burned as she fought to keep from crying again. She had failed the little girl. After all this, she had lost Clara. She dropped her head into her hands and sobbed as though her heart had broken. Tiki. Riker came into the sitting room and slid his hand along her hunched back. Tiki, don't cry. He took her into his arms, shushing her like a child, holding her close. But I love her, she sobbed. I was supposed to take care of her. You did take care of her. You saved Clara's life more than once. Again, sorry for the background noise. The dog went into his mother's room. Okay, where was I? Riker guided her over to the couch and sat next to her, an arm around her shoulders. Even Larkin said she was my responsibility that day in Mr. Potts's bookstore. Tiki's breath came out in hiccuping gasps. Shush. He pulled Tiki against him, his hand caressing her hair. Sorry. We've got to think of someplace obvious that Larkin would have hidden her tonight. Maybe she said something that was a clue. I can't remember anything, Tiki sniffed. Think, Tiki. There's got to be something. She lapsed into silence. Tiki let her mind drift back over the events of the day, from Larkin finding her in the station to tell her Clara was sick, to the disturbing reality of the other world, to watching those strange men in their silver tunics fight with Larkin and ultimately subdue her. She tried not to think about stabbing Marcus. Why is my phone doing this? Dude. Sorry, someone text me. Suddenly she sat up in alarm. Where were Seamus and the others now? Were they still out in the cold at Buckingham Palace looking for Riker? I've got to go check on. Another thought struck her. Seamus and Fiona had gone to Buckingham Palace to watch for Riker. She had come to Grosvenor Square. Charing Cross had been left empty. Had Larkin known? Riker. Tiki clutched at his arm, hope making her gasp for breath. I think I might know where Clara is. Her words were rushed as she explained what she was thinking. There's only one way to find out. The snow was coming down hard and fast, coating everything in a sparkling blanket of purest white. The ruts that other carriages had cut into the covered roads were quickly filling, and as the night wore on and the snow continued to fall, had it been under any other circumstances, Tiki would have laughed at the utter disbelief on the driver's face when he had been roosted from the bed he just crawled into and commanded to drive Riker to and some unknown street urchin to try and cross. But as it was, she had to press her lips together to keep from urging the man to hurry. Damn, this is a long chapter. Okay. The ride was agonizingly slow as the horses worked to pull the carriage along the slippery streets. Tiki picked nervously at the blanket that covered her knees as she worried again where Seamus, Toots, and Fiona were. They were resourceful, she remembered. She reminded herself. They had all learned to survive. Tiki, Riker slid a hand over her nervous fingers. We'll find Clara. If she's not here, she's someplace else. It's just a matter of information. Tiki bit her lip, afraid that if she tried to talk, she would cry. If Clara wasn't in Charing Cross, where else could they look? After what felt like forever, the carriage pulled up to the front of the station. Tiki jumped from the carriage step before the wheels came to a complete stop. Hurry! Tiki grabbed Riker's hand and pulled him along behind her through the alley. Please let her be here. Please let her be here, she mumbled as she ran. They slipped through the maintenance tunnels and Tiki pushed their back door open. For a second, she just stared at the scene before her. Several candles were lit, giving the room a soft yellow glow. Seamus, Fiona, and Toots were sitting around a small form covered with blankets near the stove. For just a second, her heart dropped. Is she? Seamus and Fiona looked up. It was the soft smile on Seamus's face that told her everything was okay. She's home, Teak. There was a note of wonder in Fiona's voice. She was here sleeping when we got back. She reached down and smoothed the blonde curls, just like she never left. Oh, fuck. Tiki dashed into the room and fell to her knees next to Clara. She burst into tears when she looked at the little face surrounded by tousled blonde curls. Clara, Tiki said softly. Sorry, there's a cat knocking at my door. She rested the backs of her fingers on the little girl's soft cheek. At the sound of Tiki's voice, Clara opened her sleepy eyes. Tiki. With a cry of happiness, Clara sat up and threw her arms around Tiki. She hugged her tight, burying her head in Tiki's neck. Finally, she gave a shuddering sigh and lifted her head. I missed you, Tiki. Tiki cupped Clara's face in her hands and kissed her forehead. I missed you too, but you're safe now, and we'll never ever part again. Clara took turns hugging Fiona and Seamus and Toots. They didn't have to add the and that many times. She looked shyly at Riker, then buried her face in Tiki's chest. With a smile, Tiki ran her hands over the blonde curls and sat down cross-legged, pulling her into her lap. How are you feeling? Are you still coughing? I'm a lot better now. Clara smiled, her blue eyes bright and healthy. I'm so glad, Tiki cried, hugging her tight. The joy bubbling inside was almost more than she could contain. You're smothering me, Tiki, Clara cried, her voice muffled. Tiki released her grip and gave a giddy laugh as she smiled down at her. Sorry about that. You practically squeezed all my stuffing out. Oh, she said with wide eyes. Better be careful or I'm going to look like Doggy. I love Clara so much. She's so adorable. For a minute, her little chin quivered. But I lost Doggy. She ran away. No, she didn't, Fiona said. She jumped up and ran to one of the cupboards behind the stove. Here she is. Clara's eyes lit up as she held her arms out eagerly for the little stuffed animal. Doggy's missed you too, Fiona said, as Clara hugged the dog close. She's been waiting for you to come home. I love how supportive they are about her. It's so adorable. But that is the end of chapter 37 and 38. I will be back tonight with chapter 39. But until then, good morning, good afternoon, and good night, my beautiful raindrops. Stay spooky, stay weird, stay dreaming.